Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause, joined by John McMullen, my co-host, the #1 Eagles beat reporter in town. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, my man?
Doing well. Gearing up for a big day at the NovaCare Complex. Long days, Wednesday and Thursday.
Yep, no doubt about it. I want to thank BetUS for sponsoring the show this morning. I want to thank everybody that listens, both during the show, after the show, on the podcast, anywhere you're listening or consuming Birds 365. We appreciate you and what you've done to help grow the show. Don't forget to drop a like on the show if you're watching after, and if you're listening on podcast, go ahead and leave us a review, as that will help us out greatly. Johnny Mac, big day today for the Birds, back at practice, right? 3:30, I think they get on the practice field today.
3:05, I think, is the
3:05.
exact time. But let me pull up the schedule. Nick Sirianni talks about 12:10, practice at 3 o'clock, then locker room after practice, which is 3:05 practice, 4:45 open locker room, Jalen Hurts press conference. Yeah, that's a pain in the ass, by the way, but they shifted from before practice to after practice when it comes to open locker room. So it is what it is.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up. We'll see today. Johnny Mac will be down there. We'll get an update on the injuries. I'll tell you where there's a lot of injuries and a lot of shit going on is in Jacksonville. They are out.
Yeah,
looks like top 2 receivers, maybe even their top 3 receivers. And yesterday they traded away their left tackle, who's been playing at a pretty high level.
Yeah.
What is going on in Jacksonville, Johnny Mac? This game is looking like – now, you never want to fall into the trap.
Yeah, you don't want to fall into the trap.
You don't want to fall asleep at the wheel. But, boy, this Jacksonville team, they look like they're selling.
Oh, yeah, they are. Well, they clearly are.
Yeah.
Aside, a contextually, like Cam Robinson, who they traded yesterday, pretty good left tackle over the years, a little bit too penalty prone, but solid player. And as you mentioned, he had been playing well, and it was a big story in Jacksonville that he got benched for Walker Little. They were moving him. That's why he got benched.
Right.
They're trying to move Brandon Sheriff evidently as well on the offense. So who knows? Maybe they get that done. Yeah, I mean, this looks too good to be true almost from an Eagles perspective. So you do worry a little bit about that human nature and that, sort of letting out that breath and saying, oh, this should be one we can chalk up. So you can't approach it like that way. I don't expect the Eagles to do it, but yeah, this is one I could see them playing down a little bit to the competition and being a little bit closer than it should be. But what I can't see is them losing the game.
I can't either.
Especially with the receiver issues and let's be honest, Trevor Lawrence isn't playing all that great with the receivers. And I would have picked the Eagles with the receivers.
Yeah, me too.
And with Cam Robinson. So, yeah, this is one you should. I'm not going to say it's a Giants level, but it's close.
John,
it's a home game.
Can you explain to me, even for a team that's selling, for a team that just signed their franchise quarterback to a massive deal, why the hell are you getting rid of his left tackle?
Yeah. Well, they last year was deal, older player. They knew they were moving on, so why not get something for him is the thought process. But you're right. I mean,
I just feel like you.
And by the way,
position, but someone on the offensive line who's protecting the biggest.
And as I said, there's been a lot of rumors around Brandon Sheriff as well. So
yeah, it's weird.
I mean, they're not a good organization. Sorry, Tony.
No, they're not.
They're not. They haven't been for a long time. And yeah, some of these decisions. Now, again, Cam's looking it up. 29, so he's going to be 30. makes a lot of money, started 91 games. You know, do you want to get better? Sure, you want to get better. And you see some of the big time left tackles. That's why Minnesota traded for him, because they lost their big time left tackle.
Yeah, well, that makes sense to me. I just didn't, that makes sense why Minnesota went for it. It's clear that they think they have a chance.
Yeah, and I don't agree with them. So
I don't
from
either.
both directions, it's a little bit strange, but they're giving up a conditional 5th round pick, so I guess it's you might as well take a shot. I would say you take out he's always had a reputation of having a lot of penalties, and it's probably not going to clean up at this stage of his career. So they want to move on, and they knew they were going to move on after the season. So why not get something for him right now? Is sort of the thought process. But yeah, there's taking on a lot of the younger GMs, and not that Trent Baalke's a younger GM, but the trend in the NFL is to be more like this now, and they're paying some of his contract to get rid of him as well. So you got a little bit of a baseball mentality thrown in, and it shifted a little bit from that perspective. So, but yeah, I don't get it. I'm with you. If you're paying the quarterback that much, all right, things haven't gone the way you would have liked this year so far. And by the way, the AFC stinks.
I know it does.
It's not the craziest thing to say that anybody can get back in that if they start to figure things out. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case. And I'm just looking up the standings in the AFC. So you got Buffalo at 6-2 in the East, and everybody else is at 2 wins. Yeah, AFC North, you got Pittsburgh and Baltimore, then 3 and 2 wins. Houston in the South, they're going to run away with that. Indy's 500. Jacksonville's at 2 wins. And then the Chiefs are undefeated. The Broncos are overachieving, and the Chargers. So by no means are they likely to make the playoffs. But the point I'm trying to make is the AFC is at the bottom when you're fighting for that last playoff spot. Everybody's still in it because it's so top heavy.
Yeah, there's the haves and the have-nots now.
So it's probably not going to be Jacksonville this year. I think everybody realizes that they're probably going to fire Doug. They're probably going to reboot the whole thing again. It's just a disaster. But, you do want to maximize the quarterback you invested in. And yeah, probably not the best idea is to trade the left tackle, but what do I know?
Hey, here we are. And
Tony's a big analytics guy too. So he's probably looking at age and all that stuff. And yeah.
Interesting move there. All I know is it does impact the Eagles. They got I don't want to call it an easy game. It's a little bit of a trap game, but a lot of stuff going on in Jacksonville, and they have a bunch of injuries as well. So we'll talk about that all throughout the rest of the week. Couple good topics today. An update for our viewers. Mike Gill had a last-minute switch up, but we'll talk to Mike tomorrow morning at 8:20. So instead of our usual Wednesday spot for Mike Gill will join us tomorrow morning at 8:20. So looking forward to talking to Mike tomorrow. And then in hour number 2, we'll have Brandon Lee Gowan, BLG from Bleeding Green Nation. Looking forward to talking to BLG. Big shout out to everybody in the chat this morning. Spa City, Johnny Mac got his Kelly Green Eagles jersey yesterday. I saw he put.
Oh yeah, it's Kelly Green week. Kelly Green week.
Kelly Green Barkley yesterday, so he put that up on Twitter. Spa, good tweet, man. Appreciate you putting that up there. Another jersey for the great people of JAKIB Nation.
Like homecoming. It's like homecoming. You got the special jersey, the weak opponent. Going to be a lot of celebrating.
You're going to be rocking that jersey this weekend, right, man? As the Eagles take on the Jags. John, we'll get into it a little bit. Speaking of teams with life, though, I just wanted to get your quick thoughts on the World Series. Yankees finally get a win yesterday. I know we're a football show, and not everybody will care, but I like to talk about the biggest things that happen in sports. Your thoughts on the World Series? Yankees coming alive.
Yeah, I mean, at least, and who knows? It's never happened before. It's never even, somebody down 3-0 in the World Series has never even gotten to a game 5, which is pretty amazing, as long as they've been doing it. And the Yankees on paper should win tonight. They have Garrett Cole going, who's clearly the best pitcher in this series by a very, very wide margin. But they blew a good start from him in the first game because analytics. You got to get them out.
Right.
And then they weren't able to hold on. So we'll see how it shakes out. But nice to see some competitiveness at least. And actually, that's probably the wrong word since every game was somewhat close because the Dodgers would just hit the big home runs and that'd be it for the offense, really for both teams. Neither team is hitting with runners in scoring position. And Ohtani, the best player in the world is hurt and he's done nothing. And the Dodgers were up 3-0. So didn't look good for the Yankees. Still doesn't look good for the Yankees, but at least there's some competition. You want to see
the bottom
that
of the lineup came alive. That bottom of the lineup was doing nothing for you. So
it was
alive,
doing nothing. Volpe and Wells.
It's a different team if they hit. Then you got to get through that tough top of the lineup.
It'd be nice to get Aaron Judge hitting. I mean,
well, he hit late last night, and I said last night as I was watching that, I think it was that 8th inning. Yeah. That was batting practice for Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, who both had a hit. And I'm like, that might come in handy in game 5.
I did the one thing about Dave Roberts, and I get why he was doing it. The game's out of reach, and you don't want to waste innings on high leverage pitchers. But boy, you also don't want to wake up the sleeping giants either, and give them a little confidence. So we'll see how it shakes out. Those are difficult decisions to make. I would have made the same decision, but I bet you had a tough time sleeping thinking, oh boy,
Aaron with an 8th inning hit and Juan Soto with an 8th inning hit.
Yeah. So the last thing you want to do, and I know Phillies fans are hyper focused on getting Juan Soto. That guy's tremendous, by the way.
Yeah.
If that happens.
I don't think the Phillies are getting him. I think he's staying right there in New York, whether it's with the Yankees or whether the guy in
well, he's a Scott Boras guy, so whoever gives the extra quarter, that's where he's going.
Yeah, and I would bet on the Mets to give the extra quarter. That dude is he's over there. He's got that like crazy eye face where he's so rich he doesn't even give a shit what the number is. He's just like, I want him, give me him, and he won't be outbid. We'll see what happens with that. Last thought on the game, John, was the fan who grabbed Mookie Betts' glove. What an idiot! What's that guy doing?
Boy,
he probably paid what, $2,000 for that?
I don't know.
That was a good.
It's interesting for those who know baseball. The famous Jeffrey Mayer game, the little kid who reached over and got a Derek Jeter home run. Now that wouldn't happen today because they have replay and all that stuff. Happened in the first game. They had the same thing. It looked like a home run by the Yankees, but it was waved off and that was in Los Angeles. Some knucklehead reached over the fence. I mean, meathead. Yeah, that's the first thing you think of with those two. Yeah. Tag teaming, basically mugging live on national television.
Yeah, I mean, reaching your hand out for when a ball comes, it makes sense.
Mookie Betts,
I mean, in the heat of the moment, but they wouldn't let Mookie go.
They wouldn't let him go.
The glove, they're prying the glove open. I mean, if you didn't watch the game last night, that's worth going and finding that clip on Twitter. That was a spectacle. I don't know what those two dudes were doing, and then they got thrown out. Two G's down the drain, Johnny Mac.
Bronx is dangerous, man. You might get mugged, so watch it. You don't think you're going to get mugged on the field, but it happened last night.
Yep, no doubt about it. John, let's get into some Eagles topics, man. We got BLG coming up in hour number 2. Like I mentioned, Mike Gill will join us a little bit later. Appreciate everybody in the chat this morning. John, I want to talk about the Eagles offense, and I want to specifically ask you about something that was put on Twitter last night from Brian Baldinger, who's actually he's a very well-connected guy for those who know Baldy. I've spoken with Baldy off the air. He's a nice dude. But he's very well connected. He knows Lane Johnson super well. So he was tweeting out footage of the Eagles game and the use of play action. And he was doing a film breakdown on it. And somebody responded back to him and said, any idea why it took him 8 weeks to do this? And he's talking
Didn't
about
take him 8 weeks to do it. They
under
did it
center play
effectively.
action.
They
He
did it effectively.
responded back to that person and said, a few guys were tired of the offense and spoke up. Now, I don't know what his inside access is. I don't know what he's referring to with that. Many would say his relationship with Lane Johnson might show, but I don't know. What do you think Baldy means by what he said there?
Lane said it was constipated. Well, Jalen said he talked about imposing all this nonsense about, wins and losses and how the offense looks. But I do think of the clip you're talking about, and you'll notice if Baldy put play action in quotes, because they're doing it from the gun. So again, their play action is a little bit different than traditional play action. So watch the clip. Every single one is from the pistol or gun. Because the under center has been a big thing because people read the box score. They're under center and they see play action and they don't watch the clip. And every single play he clipped, they're from the shotgun or pistol. So that would be number one. But as far as Baldy, he works out in Lane's pro barn. He's very close to Lane. Lane's very honest about constipation. He said it before. Nobody was happy with the offense. But as far as these massive changes, I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see it. Doesn't exist. I said, a basketball writer was contacting me yesterday, and I said, look, the synonym for creativity, because everybody says creativity, like standing under center is creative. I mean, taking a snap from center is creative.
No, I know what you're saying. I think there's a line though of thinking where it's like this offense became predictable, or at least that's what
there is a line of thinking. There's definitely a line of thinking.
Right.
But here's what creative means in the NFL. Success.
Exactly.
And that's what I wrote back. That's the synonym for creative: success. Standing under center and handing the ball off, or being under center and tush pushing, is the least creative thing in the world.
Right, but isn't evolving to sustain success creative?
No.
Like I get what you're saying in terms of
it's not creative, it's effective.
Okay.
It's not creative.
I think that's what people mean when they say creative.
I agree.
Yeah.
So, when I say creative is not a synonym for success, and the best thing Nick said over the past 10 days or so is success takes what it takes. Takes what it takes. By hook or by crook is what he was saying. And he says it all the time. We got to throw it 40 times. We're going to throw it 40 times. We got to run it 40 times. We're going to run it 40 times. Success takes what it takes. The scheme stuff changes from week to week. He said that multiple times over the past week. But boy, people want to hang on to. I mean, they were good. They were good. So I always say that. And Dan Orlovsky is a guy I've been picking on, but because I'm a little bit disappointed in Dan, because A, I have a lot of respect for him, number one. And B, I think he's fallen into this crevice. Now, you can like whoever you want to like when it comes to analysts. You can trust whoever you want to trust. I encourage you to seek out people who know what they're talking about. Dan's certainly one of those people. Brian's certainly one of those people. Brian Balding. But Dan's out there saying they're the least prepared team in the NFL 1 week, and 2 weeks later, everything is fixed. Does that make sense to anybody?
No, it doesn't. You're right about that.
I mean, it's They're playing well. They were
And
trying
more,
to do this stuff before. They weren't playing well. They weren't effective. They weren't executing.
well, and you just said it again. You know what it reminds me of, and I think of you every time I think of this crap. They just started executing better, and now the judgment is different. And you always say it. People don't judge the play calls, and it kind of applies to a lot more in football. They just judge the results. Now that the
Yes,
results are showing up,
yes.
all of a sudden they're
And
prepared and
and
everything.
and I get it from that perspective. But when it happens for people like Dan and people like Brian, I'm like, ugh, ugh, because I don't think it helps people. Like I think people said, like what Brian essentially saying is Kellen Moore, who's been an offensive coordinator in this league a long time now, despite his young age, has had number one offenses in this league. Developed a certain offense for the unsuccessful games and said, "Oh, we're going to scrap this and we're going to do something different for the success." Again, does anybody really believe that? If you take a step back, does anybody really believe he came up before the Giants game? Because it's really not Cleveland, even though they won 3 straight, they didn't look good against Cleveland. So it's really 2 games. You really believe he just said, middle of the week, oh, you know what? Fuck this shit. We're gonna scrap it and we're gonna do a bunch of different stuff. I don't know if you believe that. All right. I can't, I'm not gonna argue with you. It's just not realistic. So, was anyone happy? No, Lane verbalized it. So I'm sure he verbalized it to Brian. We're constipated. We look like shit. But I also guarantee Lane said, you know, if we execute better, it'll look better. But, and they've done some different things, but that more has to do with the box score. Again, being in front of lead. That's the big talking point this week under center. And I think the number was 21. They were under center. So I went through the whole damn thing. 19 of them were runs. And a bunch of them were tush pushes. So it's sort of like Jordan Davis in playing time. Why isn't Jordan Davis playing? Well, you're up by 20 points. You're rushing the passer. It's sort of like the same thing. You're up by that much, and the past 2 games, 14 out of 15 times, 15 plays against the Giants were runs in the fourth quarter. I think it was 14 out of 18, something like that. Last 18 against Cincinnati. That's because of the way the game went. So, yeah, I get frustrated. I shouldn't get frustrated, but I get frustrated. Not with you, Zander.
That's all right. I mean, listen, if you get frustrated with me, it doesn't bother me. I mean, it is what it is. You're here to educate the masses and me and give us your objective, great middling analysis, John. As you point out, I'll go up and down, and you keep me right in the middle. But you tweeted out something that Kellen Moore said yesterday, and it made me think about some of our conversations in the last couple of weeks. Potentially the conversations that have left you with a concussion. But you tweeted out, and his quote responding about Jalen being under center was, "I think it's something we've talked about as a collective group. There will be different opportunities throughout games. It's come up the last few weeks, and there have been some positives with it. So we'll see where it takes us." I mean, Kellen saying that makes me believe I'm not entirely crazy when I say I think there's some good things they're doing in terms of balancing out their offensive approach. What was your takeaway from Kellen saying that?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. People can read the same quote and see different things. I took it. It's come up the last few weeks, as I just explained, because of circumstance. He didn't put in circumstance, but it's come up the last few weeks, and there have been some positives with it. Yeah, they're up 20. It's very positive. So we'll see where it takes us. In other words, If we're down 20, yeah, we're not going to be under center. That's how I took it.
So, in your opinion, the Eagles being up 20 versus the Bengals had nothing to do with them being under center. It's more the other way around. They were under center because they got the lead.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think there's definitely, I think I would fall into this camp of you look at the balanced approach.
They were
And I think
under
you're right.
center,
I
so
appreciate
they
what
were
you're saying of like, yeah, they're obviously going to run more when they have a
they were
two-score
under
lead.
center so much more than they typically are. And by the way, they're last in the NFL coming into the game, snaps under center, and the vast majority of those were tush push type things. So doesn't even really count. And by the way, I don't think that's good. I'm not saying it shouldn't be increased to give some different looks and things like that. I'm not trying to say that. What I'm trying to say is people thinking it's some kind of sea change.
Right.
I don't believe that. Other than maybe they run the ball so effectively that it says, all right, let's do this a little bit more. But from the total sort of makeup of the offense, in key moments of close games, they're going to be in pistol or gun the vast majority of time.
Yeah, I mean, early in the Bengals game, though, John, they definitely were under center a little bit. I mean, we got to halftime, it was only 10-10. So it's not like there was a big discrepancy in scoring.
Well,
Up to that point.
yeah. Well, it's sort of like Shane with Jalen Hurts' touches, and he used to bang his head against the wall and get because he did ask the question, is 12 touches sustainable? And then, he'd say what he'd say on the podium. And Shane was even less forthcoming than Kellen Moore.
Yeah, he
If that's
didn't like being
possible.
at the podium.
And then he would get off the podium and he tells, there's fucking 4 push touches. There's my app, but that's Shane. I'm doing a Shane impression.
Yeah, I love
There's
the Shane
fucking
impression.
four tush pushes, 3 victory formations. He carried it 5 times. And like everybody looks at the box score. And that was literally a conversation. By the way, I just broke the cardinal rule of journalism because I shouldn't have said that because it was off the record. So forget I said that.
It was,
but it's already out
I don't
there.
think it was exactly what was said. You were just giving us a glimpse.
It's already out there. So I apologize to Shane if he's listening from Indianapolis, which I doubt because he's got his own issues.
Yeah, he's got his own headache going on.
He's got his own issues. But now that I let it out there and I shouldn't have, he's like, what the fuck, man? I mean, watch the game is what he was essentially saying. Bunch of tush pushes. You're in victory formation, the particular game he was talking about, 3 times. Those are all carries. If people don't know, those are counted as carries. For Jalen Hurts, both of them. Tush push.
Right. Yeah, tush push, definitely.
Victory formation is a carry.
Jalen's going to pass Van Buren as a top Eagles rushing quarterback in touchdowns because of the tush push. How many tush push touchdowns does he have in his career?
A lot.
30? 25?
I haven't seen the total number recently.
I would love to find that number
I'll
out.
ask Jeff Kerr. He'll know. He's Mr. Stat.
Jeff Kerr knows everything with that.
He loves the stats. I could care less. I care about the 6 points, but yeah, they're tremendous. He's already 3rd in the NFL history for quarterbacks scoring rushing touchdowns. So
yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's been quite the weapon for the Eagles and continues to be. And they ran, boy, it's just like 4 or 5 last week.
I mean, he had 3 rushing touchdowns. I think all 3 of them were tush push, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. No, he have the one where
he had the one was
he's scrambled in.
But yeah, he's doing that's been a big, obviously, weapon for the Eagles and continues to be. But to the larger point of got to be careful with those numbers, man. making assessments off tush pushes and victory formation. That was the issue the week prior with the Giants. They're in victory formation and a bunch of tush pushes. And people just pick up that box score and say, oh, he's carrying it too much. Oh, he's under 4 yards a carry. Well, that's 1 yard, 1 yard, 1 yard, 1 yard, 1 effective yard typically.
Yeah.
And then -1 or -2, depending how far you're going back on victory formation. -1, -1. That's 7 carries
For
for
0 yards.
I mean, people got to be careful with that shit, but they're not. So anyway, that would drive Shane crazy. I digress. But yeah, from the standpoint, they need to be under center more. You know, Nick Sirianni, one of Nick Sirianni's 1,000 cliches is one he doesn't often adhere to. And it says, he constantly says, and I'm sure people have heard it, a wise man avoids all extremes. And he never wants to be bottom 5 in anything in the NFL. Well, they're bottom 5 in a ton of shit that he doesn't seem to be care of. Motion, not this year, but years prior, under center. So nobody's saying they shouldn't have increased this stuff. But the meaning that people put on it is just way out of whack, way out of frame.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this though, because I understand what you're saying, but I do think there is a little bit of, I mean, it looks different, and not only does it look different to people, but there are people who are writing about it. Even the quarterback has kind of commented on the differences. I mean, Dave Zangara, I think it was from NBC. Dave does a really nice job, so shout out to Dave. He wrote an article this morning that I read about the offense and the one big difference that the offense brought in week 8. And he said one notable difference in week 8 ? There was a pronounced uptick in snaps under center with quarterback Jalen Hurts. And then he put a quote from Jalen and he said, I think it does a lot, Hurts said after the game. I think we're able to be the imposers. I think it says a lot about what you are offensively. So I'm not saying that to dispute what you said. I'm saying that that's why there's a general thinking in the air that this offense is different right now than it was in the beginning of the year, because people are writing about it. Jalen Hurts is commenting about it. I mean, Kellen Moore is being asked about it. We're all seeing it with our own 2 eyes. I think you're right that it does come down to success, but are you saying that this offense isn't any different at all, or just the minor differences?
Just minor differences, yeah. And yeah, it comes down to execution. Now, Jalen's trying to get through a press conference. I knew it was going to be a big thing. I've already told you, he talked about the event, and everybody takes it and takes the baton. And Dave wrote about it. Olivia wrote about it. I'm going to be writing about it. Everybody writes about it because that's what the quarterback says.
Right.
Yeah. Trying to get through a press conference.
I get it, but
they were successful. John. And they were successful. And by the way, Nick has said, you know, the identity, that's the other big word, habits and physicality. So they're trying to be more physical. They're trying to impose their will with the offensive line, which is ironic because they were down 2 offensive linemen, but they're still very good, obviously. And they are trying to take advantage and lean more on the offensive line, and that presumably will increase even more when Mackay is back, likely this week. We'll get a better indication today, and Jordan in a couple weeks.
Which, in my opinion, is the right thing to do, by the way.
Yeah, well, I mean, arguably, you could argue Detroit, and that's probably it. So, you know, when you have the first or second best offensive line in football, it's been this way. It's been the strength of the Eagles for years, the offensive line. And, you know, come draft time, nobody likes it. When they draft offensive linemen, nobody wanted Cam Jurgens. If you go back to when they drafted him 51 overall, now everybody's pretty happy with it. Nobody would have liked it this year if they would have drafted an offensive lineman, but Howie would have done it if if Fautanu fell to them.
I wouldn't have minded it. I know it's not the flashy pick that everybody likes, but I love how we're a dominant team on the offensive line.
Well, everyone should, but it's not sexy in the moment.
Yeah, I get it, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, they should take advantage of their offensive line. But what I'm trying to say, that's different than changing the offense. Like the offense hasn't changed. I can't, we're weak. What week are we in?
week
Eagles.
9.
Yeah, we're week 9, and people are really thinking Kellen Moore changed his offense. By the way, not coming off the bye magically for the Giants game. So he did it in week, and it just happens to line up with being successful. Why is nobody when people change offenses and everybody lauds them for it? Why are they never unsuccessful? Does anybody ever think about that? This stuff only comes up when you're successful. Oh, they changed this. They changed this. Maybe the players executed better. Maybe the players played better.
Yeah, but can't you see how that's a little bit of a what came first, chicken or the egg type of argument? I mean, and
not really.
Let me just give you the stats because, and maybe you'll point to this as it's because they were winning the game. Maybe it's as simple as that in your mind. In week 1, 9.5% under center. Week 2, 10.3% under center. Week 3, 4.5%, 7% under center. Week 6, 11.3% under center. Week 7, 20% under center. And week 8, 35.6% under center.
Yeah.
So that's a big increase. I mean, the first 5 games, first 6 weeks, you were averaging probably 9 to 10% under center. Now you went 20 in week 7 and 35% in week 8. It's a big uptick. That's where the people are coming from, though, when they say, "Oh, it looks different." Oh, and the success is there, right? You blew the Bengals off the page. We thought it was going to be a shootout. You thought the Bengals were going to win the game. I thought it was going to be a shootout with Joe Burrow. This
is a different way to have the run-pass ratio conversation.
I know that's where you were going to go with this. I know. Yeah, I hear. I get it, but
I mean, put down the box score, everybody, and just think about the game. And just think about what happened in the fourth quarters of each game. Now, it's going to come. It's probably not going to come this week. We talked about Jacksonville. We'll talk about them and how many issues. I can't tell you when it's coming, but it's going to come where the Eagles are going to have to play in the fourth quarter and try to win a football game. And they might be down 7. They might be up 7. They might be down 3. They might be down 14. Obviously, if they're down 14, they're going to be in the gun and they're going to be throwing the football every single play. Now, are these people going to say, "Oh, they should have run the ball"? I don't know. Maybe. I hope not. I hope it doesn't devolve to that level. Success takes what it takes. It's not a chicken and the egg. Is you can't answer that question. Nobody knows.
I know, but the offense has been more successful, and then you see also an uptick. So you're saying they were successful. They were successful the last 2 weeks, so they ran it more. Other people can look at it and say, we ran it more and we were more successful these weeks.
But they ran 14 out of 15 in the fourth quarter. 14 out of 5. They did it at the end. That's where the large disparity comes from, when you already have the lead. So it's not the chicken and the egg. The disparity comes from the score. You're just trying to get out of there. Get out. Will Shipley's running the ball. Kenny Gainwell's running the ball. They're under center, handing it off.
Yeah, that's fine from the run pass. I mean, lining up under center, I think, is a different percentage game, but maybe not. I mean,
they were doing it. Look at the end of the game. The Will Shipley. They were under center running the football. Of their 21 under center, 10 were runs to Barkley. I think 5 were to Gainwell.
So the Eagles' improvement in offensive execution in the last couple of weeks, in your opinion, has nothing to do with them being under center.
No, execution has nothing to do with
just being more successful as an offense.
Whether you're under center, whether you're in shotgun, whether you're in pistol, you can execute from anything. As Baldy pointed out, and I encourage people to go look at what he did and look at the play action. They're all from the pistol or shotgun. They executed. Why isn't anybody talking about that? Look at it, pull it up. I'll retweet it. Every single play he showed has the Eagles play actioning from not traditional, from the shotgun or the pistol. Every single one of them. I'm watching it right now. Here's the second one. Shotgun. That's the deep shot to DeMonte Smith, the touchdown. Play action from the shotgun. Play action from the pistol. Here's the third one. Every single play, that was the weird motion to Jahan Dotson, opening up things underneath. Shotgun again, 4 for 4. Play action from the shotgun. Every single play. Every single play. Successful play, because Baldy was only putting up successful plays. Every single one. Why is nobody talking about that? It's not, by the way, it's not a guarantee of success. It's the point that they're not doing anything from under center in the passing game. 19 of the 21 were runs.
They've been a much more physical football team in the last couple of weeks. It's hard for you to dispute that, John. I understand what you're saying, but I think what you're trying to sell is a tough thing to sell.
It's a tough thing to sell because people are not educated about what they're watching. I'm sorry. 19 of 21, they just turned it around and handed the football off. If you want to do that, great. If you think that's going to lead to long-term success, great. It's not. All of a sudden, if you're under center 19 of 21 times, don't you think the other team's going to pick up on that and say, oh, well, they're going to run the football? Don't you think that's going to make it more? Does that sound creative to you?
No, it doesn't, but it has worked. Whatever they're doing in the last 2 weeks has worked very well. And people are looking at that and looking at the breakdown of the numbers and looking at what they're watching with their own 2 eyes. And they're saying, we're imposing our will now. We're being a physical football team again.
I know I'm fighting a losing battle. I don't even know why I try to fight it.
Well, no, I appreciate you trying to bring.
If people don't want to see, again, this is just another way to have the run-pass ratio argument. If people don't see that personalities of games define those types of statistics, I can't help them. Not that there's any, it's not even necessarily, it's a very good thing. You want to be up. You want to close games. This is what the Eagles envisioned. Their whole envision was, we'll get the lead and we will run with Saquon Barkley to close these games. And we will be better at it than we were with DeAndre Swift or Miles Sanders. That's exactly what they envisioned. There's nothing wrong with it. In fact, it's very good. But when you're running 14 out of 15 times in the fourth quarter and people derive meaning from that, like just do that the next week, that's dumb. I don't know how another word to use.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. But I mean, are you saying that the success in the last couple of weeks has nothing to do with, or isn't a product of any switches in the offense? It's simply been more successful, which has changed some of those statistics.
Yes, it's boring, but it's about execution. It's Kellen Moore's offense. It was Kellen Moore's
And
offense
you don't
week
think any
1.
of the any changes were made to help execute better?
There's changes made every week from a game plan perspective based on the opponent.
Right,
So
but they're
there's
not
gonna be
related to this. They're not related to being under center and running the
they're
football.
not trying to change their offense. No. They're not trying to change their offense. They're trying to game plan for Jacksonville this week, and success takes what it takes. And it'll probably look all familiar, and people will gather more and they'll say, McMullen's wrong. Look, they did it again because of a shitty opponent. And maybe not. Maybe they play down and they don't execute and they play down. I find that hard to believe, but it's possible. It is the NFL. And then people may say, what the hell are they doing? Why don't they do what they did against Cincinnati? And whether it's Dallas on November 10th, whether it's Washington on November 14th, whether it's the Rams on November 24th or the Ravens on December 1st, that stretch of games after Jacksonville, there will be a game that will drive these people insane because they will be behind and they will look like they don't want them to look because they're trying to win a football game, and it will correlate to, why didn't you just do what you did against the Giants? And I've been fighting this battle for over 20 years, and I'm never going to win it.
Well, here's another
But
stat for you, and you might not like this one, but I'm going to give it to you anyway.
uh,
And courtesy of Dan
yeah,
Orlovsky, put it out there.
could,
Eagles ran it 46 times for 264 yards on first down across their last 2 games. People are looking at that and saying, we're running the ball more. We have a more effective offense. We have a more balanced offensive approach, and it's led to more success.
again, the balance term. They're not. All right, I'll throw it back at you, Zander. They're not balanced. How could you say they're balanced over the last 2 weeks?
Just
They've run the football far more than they've thrown it to a ludicrous degree.
Well, then I would point to your stats. They've run the ball way more because why? Because the fourth quarter of the games were irrelevant in both contests, and they ran 15 times, which changed the discrepancy in the numbers.
Exactly.
But if you look at the first 3 quarters, the numbers were probably pretty close to even.
But you're talking about 46. You gave Dan stat. So, there's a famous quote from, it's credited to Thomas Edison, but some British prime minister, it should be credited to. There's 3 types of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. You can pick up a statistic and meld it in any way you want, as you just did, and I just did. You can look. You want to talk about balance, and then you're giving me Dan's numbers that bring up the fourth quarter, in closing the game with runs. And I can point to,
running it 46 times on first down is not all done in the fourth quarter of games, John.
It's done a lot in the fourth quarter of games.
All right. I mean, if they had 14 runs in the fourth quarter last week, how many of them were first down? A couple, 4, 5. Okay, now I'm down to 41. How many of it were first downs in this game? Another 5. I'm down to 36. That's 36 first down runs that didn't come in the fourth quarter. Just ballparking.
There's, I don't even understand the argument. Is it balance or is it? What is the argument?
Eagles offense has seemed to take on a new approach of not wanting to just throw the ball all the time, not running go routes on first down in the beginning of the games, a more balanced approach, running the
When
football,
when
setting up
have
the pass, and beating football teams with a good offense.
yeah,
That's what the
all right,
argument is.
17 concussions coming, 18th coming. I'm gonna have to retire. No team in football has had more 200-yard rushing games since 21 than the Philadelphia Eagles. None. No team. So when they were throwing it all the time, they were the most either the most effective running team or certainly top 5 in the NFL. With Miles Sanders back in the Super Bowl season, DeAndre Swift early last season, whatever. They've run the football since that 2-5 start, and then they scaled back and sort of went to more of the RPO offense. No team in the NFL has had more 200-yard rushing performances. Every time they have one, Nick gives the whole offensive line a game ball, yada, yada, yada. Yet some they never run the ball. They never run the ball. They never run the ball. They always run the ball, especially when they're successful. Then they really run the ball. That's what they want to do. But they want to pass to get the lead and run to close games. I don't know. If people don't like
No,
it,
I
that's fine.
understand that. I think though,
That doesn't mean you're never running it. It's all about efficacy. It's all about effectiveness.
right. Don't you think their approach would improve efficacy?
Their approach is the same. That's what I'm saying. The efficacy comes from
It
the
doesn't look
execution.
the same though, and I think that's where you're fighting an uphill battle with just general thought process. It doesn't look the same even early in games. It doesn't. It looks different than it did 3-4 weeks ago. It does. The Bucks game, they came out, they lined up in shotgun on the very first play and threw a go route. Threw the ball
The
all over the
Bucks game,
field
they didn't
outside.
even throw the Bucks game out. They didn't even have Lane Johnson, AJ Brown, or
Well,
Devontae.
whatever. Take any of the games in the beginning of the season.
Well, nobody was complaining against Green Bay because they scored a bunch of points. Again, nobody can play. They look good. Again, it's look. They look good. We talked about the first quarter struggles all season. Now they still haven't scored a damn point in the first quarter. Now it wasn't their fault in Cincinnati. They were moving the football well for the first time, by the way. And obviously because of the defense giving up, you know, up to that Cincinnati game, I don't think anybody was happy with the way they started. So if you look at the Giants game, well, they started hot, not hot, but Jalen Hurts, first play of the game, passed AJ Brown for 11 yards. Then they run it and get 1 yard. Then they're behind, not behind the sticks, but they're second and long. And then Jalen Hurts gets sacked. And then he throws the short pass on third and long to Saquon Barkley. That was the big, when everybody got fired up because he ran over the Giants, but they had the punt. So, they started the game how they usually start the game, and it wasn't effective. And they haven't been effective largely in the first quarter. And they've run it a lot. I've gone.
Okay, well, let me ask you this because I hear what you're saying. Let me ask you this. How much of an impact does Saquon Barkley's success with the Eagles have on the Eagles' passing game? Not that he would be the guy making the catches, but just making life easier in the passing game. Any at all?
Not as much as it should. They haven't been as effective throwing the football as they typically are. So hopefully that changes. It started to change a little bit last week. And that's ironically, that's what I took out of the game. All right, they're finally getting Devontae involved. long touchdown. AJ's AJ. They're both over 80 yards. 6 out of 7 targets for DeMonte. 5 out of 6 for AJ. Even 3 out of 3 for Grant Calcaterra. So, it started to get better against Cincinnati. That's where it should be. For most of the season, it hasn't been there. And you would think it would get better with having the better running back, but it hasn't to this point. Now, hopefully, there's still plenty of time. Hopefully, that's where they're going because it should be easier. It definitely should be easier, but it hasn't been to this point. Well, for all the talk, I mean, so many fans thought last year's offense was the worst in the history of the world, and it was, again, it was top 8 in the league. Certainly more effective throwing the football than they have been early this season, which doesn't make a lot of sense because you have a running back having the tremendous season. So that's a lot why people were criticizing, and I think rightfully so, Jalen Hurts, to be honest. But right now they're 8th overall in offense. 8th overall. Ironically, the same spot where they ended last season. But they are 20th in passing offense.
Yeah.
So it's actually gotten worse, and it should be getting better. Yeah. And hopefully it will. And it did against Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And that's their best game. So, I mean, that's what you're striving for. You want to be up 20, you want to be up big in the fourth quarter every game. And you want to be able to just run the clock out. And they did. And it was a great performance. So I know everybody wants to translate that to every week moving forward. I'm just saying it's not possible. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think both are important. You can't be one-dimensional either way, whether it's run or pass.
They've never been one-dimensional, ever. This is the least one-dimensional team in the NFL since 2021. Literally, least. And I say that, because they're much better running the football than Kansas City. Much better. And that's because of their offensive line, for the most part. And even Saquon will tell you that. I mean, Jimmy Kempski, talk about a stat. Since we're in stat day, I'll give Jimmy. I'll try to pull it up. Saquon Barkley. The difference between playing behind an awful offensive line, the Giants, and an elite one, obviously the Eagles. Average yards before contact, 2018, 2.2 with the Giants. 2019, 1.8. 2020, negative 0.1, which is amazing. 2021, 1.9. 2022, 2.5. That was his high with the Giants. 2023, 1.9. You want to guess what 2024 is?
Right there, same number. 1.7.
4.3.
Oh, before contact. I thought you meant after.
Yes.
Contact. Yeah, before contact. 4.3.
Oh, he's actually below.
I was going to say, I thought he was a little worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I misheard you. No, yeah, before. That's all offensive line right there, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
4.3. Now, average yards after contact before the injury, 2018, 2.8. Tremendous number, by the way. 2019, 2.8. 2020, 1.8. 2021, 1.7. 2022, 1.9. 2023, 2.0. 2024, 1.6. He's actually at a career low in average yards after contact.
Yeah. Good conversation there, John. I have one more question about the offense. And I asked Celia this yesterday, and I'll ask you this. No, it's not. It's nothing bombastic. When the hell is a team going to figure out how to stop the tush push.
No, they're not. I mean, that's the whole point.
I mean, it's unbelievable. We start every drive, John. It's 1st and 9.
There's no stopping it. I mean, that's
I mean, the
again
Bengals
when
knew it was
I
coming. They
say
even knew what gap they were running it in, John, and they still couldn't stop it.
when I say embrace the uniqueness of the player, so many teams have tried to run the tush push, and they fail miserably because they don't have a quarterback that can deadlift 650 pounds. And I've maintained back when everybody was losing their mind and the NFL, people thought the NFL was going to ban it. I said, who cares? Jalen Hurts is going to be awesome running a traditional quarterback sneak. Way better than the average quarterback. And really, the Eagles, going back to Carson Wentz, have been tremendous at traditional quarterback sneaks. A lot of that had to do with Kelsey, obviously, but and Carson, because Carson's a big, strong dude as well. But yeah, they've been good at it a lot of times. And they would be good at it even if they did ban it, and they're not going to ban it.
No, it's just unbelievable that there's no NFL team out there that can figure out how to stop that damn thing. So I agree with Scott. He's like, that's why you never quit running it. It's totally demoralizing. It is. It's a bully play. Meet me in the hole because we're always better than you. It is, man. In a physical game, it is. I just wanted to bring that up because I thought it was impressive. 3 super chats, John, we'll get to, and then we'll get to a commercial break. We have BLG coming up. Good first hour of the show today. Plenty watching. Appreciate all of you guys. Make sure you guys smash that like button. We've been doing better on Birds 365. Still a long ways to go, though, on what we can do on likes. I'd like to try and get to like a 200 baseline on Birds, but we keep falling well short of that. Daniel Bigelow.
I'm angering too many people, Zander. I'm angering.
Whether it's me or it's you, it's a different day, different anger, different person angering the people. Daniel Bigelow says, I agree with John. If we come out on opening drive and run 3 times and go 3 and out, we'd be pissed they didn't throw the ball.
Oh, they'd be, yeah.
Well, Daniel, I never said to do that. I mean, shit. That's not balance.
Yeah, well, I love the people. You got to stay disciplined, and yeah, they would lose their minds if they were down 10-0 trying to be disciplined with the running game as well. But it is what it is. It just drives me nuts. But I'm fighting a losing battle. I realize that.
Prince Swayze checks in. John, tell Doug to leave us with Trayvon Walker. Shit. They're selling.
Well, they are selling. I don't know if you can. Look, the Eagles made a mistake, it seems, on Bryce Huff. I don't know. You're going to bench a $51 million edge rusher? I don't know.
Yeah, that's going to be.
I mean, technically,
Vic would do it. Vic would do it.
You can do whatever you want, technically. But again, are we talking about realism, or I just don't know if Howie is gonna be able to go down that route.
I don't see it either with Howie. I think Vic would have no problem doing it, but I don't see Howie doing it.
Oh yeah, Vic.
DC Demon checks. I don't know what this means, John. You might have to clarify. I don't know if you'll know either. He says we need deli tickets at the press conference at NBC Dave.
I don't know what that means.
Sorry, VC. Hate to break it to you, but we can't answer that sucker. Appreciate everybody in the chat today. Hit that like button. A nice conversation on the Philadelphia Eagles offense here on Birds 365. We'll get to our first commercial break, and we will talk to BLG coming up at around 9:20. So thanks for being here, everybody. Before I get to our break, let me tell you about the great people at BetUS. You can see the promo code on your screen and the scroll on the bottom of the screen. YouTube 150 is the code, and it gives you 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit, and you even get 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000. So deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa for the fastest payouts in the industry, 24/7 customer support, and they'll even give you your own custom account manager. Big shout out to BetUS for sponsoring the show today. We'll be back in 3 minutes, everybody, on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
He's blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on Sports Grid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on Sports Grid. Score and save in Southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood day.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. Drop me a follow at Real Zander. That's my co-host, John McMullen. Drop him a follow at JF McMullen.
I'm in the protocol. I'm in the protocol during the break.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll pass through it.
Johnny Max banging the head against the wall. I'm feeling like Jody. I've had John banging his head against the wall so much in the last couple of weeks. John, it's time for the Bryce Huff segment. We just brought him up a little bit in the last segment there when we had a super chat about Trayvon Walker. What has Bryce Huff shown you? Is he still on the milk carton? Is he just going to be a rotational piece? Could he still turn it around? Where are you on Bryce Huff, Johnny Mac?
I don't think Vic likes him very much, and I think this is it. I think he's playing a little bit better, and they've scaled back.
Like he's getting around a little bit better, not getting home, but he is getting a little bit more pressure.
No, he's been, to me, he'll be, the rotational player, and when it comes to Brandon Graham, they seem to be, having him more on a pitch count. But if it's a close game, again, I go back to depending on the personality of the game. I think that'll affect Brandon snaps. They'll try to keep him on the pitch count. And then when it comes to Nolan Smith and Bryce Huff, I think basically it'll be, who's got the hot hand will play more on a particular Sunday. And I think that's where you're going to be, unfortunately. It hasn't been great, and it hasn't been terrible, though. I think that's overrated. I don't think he's been a terrible player, but I do think, the hopes I had for him are nowhere close. And He's not been what the Eagles projected him to be, is fair to say. And I don't think it's coming. I don't think you turn on the light switch, but I do find it very hard to picture. And Beck kind of talked about this yesterday about trade deadline things and he doesn't particularly like them because, it's not like baseball. It's not like pitcher versus batter. And you just you can put somebody in San Diego and put them in Philadelphia the next day. And it's the same thing. He's just going to hit, and it's easy. Now there's some human transitions and moving across country and all that kind of stuff that affects people, but just from the nature of the game,
he didn't really move across the country.
No, I'm talking about in my baseball analogy. I'm saying it's easy. It's easy to put somebody in a lineup and they just play defense and they just bat against a pitcher. It's easy. It doesn't change. In football, you got different schemes, different things, and it's not working out with Bryce Huff. But I'm not talking about Bryce Huff. I'm talking about a potential
I got you.
trade acquisition. And Vic is pretty clear that he's not all that gung-ho about picking somebody up in week 9, who's going to help drastically. So I think it's going to be Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Bryce Huff, Nolan Smith. I think that's what you got.
Nolan Smith looks way better than him right now to me as a 3-down player. He can play the run better. He's setting the edge better. I know he hasn't shown enough to crown him, but he has showed signs of improvement. Here's Bryce Huff's stats for everybody. We're through 7 games. 5 started. He started 5 of them, which you've seen in the last couple. I think he started with Nolan Smith out there, but 1.5 sacks, 8 combination tackles, and 4 solo tackles, 1 tackle for loss.
I don't care about tackles, but
I don't either. But I'm just giving the stat in the line. And 3 QB hits. So, $17 million edge rusher, John. That's not going to cut it, especially the 1.5 sacks. Now, do you have his pressure percentages or anything like that? Like you and Jody used to talk about. And I would always.
Yeah, they're not.
It's not all about the sack. If you move the quarterback off his spot or get a pressure in his face, you could force an incompletion. That matters too.
Yeah, you haven't seen them. No, you haven't. You haven't seen. Like he was near. I don't have the numbers. I can try to find them, but he was near. He led the league in one of the past 2 years with the Jets, and he was top 5 in both the last. Now, granted, very limited snap counts and all that kind of stuff. So you put that in there, but he hasn't been that guy here, and that's been one of the disappointments. That's been one of the disappointments. So Aiden Hutchinson's number 1. I only got the top 20, and he ain't
I would
in it.
assume Bryce is not on that list.
No, he is not in it. And that's, there's different ones. This is ESPN's pass rush win rankings, which, some of these stats you got to take with a grain of salt, but it's all the names that you would expect. Aiden Hutchinson, Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson. We don't talk enough about Fred Johnson's job. I asked Kellen Moore about that. That was, if you talk about the first 7 games of the season, that is the most. It's between Zach Bond in week 1 against Green Bay. I was mesmerized by that performance, and Fred Johnson against Cincinnati. Mesmerized. Didn't see it coming. Thought it would be a freaking nightmare for the Eagles. Trey Hendrickson did nothing. Nothing. And he's 3rd in the NFL in pass rush win rates, even with that performance, by the way. Nothing. You never know in this league. It's crazy.
So the takeaway is Bryce Huff sucks.
It hasn't been good. He hasn't been good this year. I'll say that. everybody in New York thinks he can play, and everybody's here like he sucks. I can't even tell you. I can't even explain it. Because everybody who saw him in New York is like, this guy, Jets made a mistake. And
Yeah, but
blah,
some
blah,
people
blah.
thrive in rotational roles, right? I mean, he's
Well, he is in a
elevated.
rotational role.
I know.
He's not playing.
I'm trying to
3
give the
downs.
guy something, John. I'm trying to give him
Yeah, that's one of those things. It's like, well, he's trying to be. No, he's not. They pulled the plug on that long ago.
So he sucks. It just sucks. Normally, John keeps me in the middle. He sucks. That's what John's telling me right now. He sucks. The guy sucks.
He
We signed
hasn't-
$17 million. We needed a productive
No,
edge
I
rusher.
could say he hasn't been as bad as people.
I mean, he's been pretty bad.
Well, from the expectation again, everything's based.
Well,
on
not even just from the expectation. I agree. There's always an expectation of people, but like your contract comes with an expectation. He's so far below that. It's not even, forget what people think. Forget what I think. Forget what you think. Forget what even coaches think. He was paid to be a productive edge rusher. He's performing like a perennial backup.
but I just push back on this sucks. Like, all right, I'm trying to look it up.
Well, nobody sucks. It's the NFL. I mean, sucks
Yeah.
for his contract.
So, but no, even from the general, they have, all right, we'll use PFF grades to get who's the guy who hates PFF?
Prince.
To get Prince excited. 113 edge rushers graded this year. Bryce is 68th. So there's a lot of shittier edge rushers, believe it or not. Bud Dupree, 113 of 113, by the way. Congratulations, Bud. So, he hasn't been as bad as people think, but it hasn't been near what the Eagles were expecting.
No doubt about that. Let's get to our commercial. Yep, no doubt. Bryce Huff on the milk carton. He will be perpetually on the milk carton until further notice. Maybe he'll come alive with a big week coming up against the Jags. They did just get rid of their left tackle. Who's their right tackle? They don't still have like Jawan Taylor, do they? Who do they have over there?
The Jags, Walker Little is going to be playing left tackle. I forget who there. I'll look it up in the break.
Let me see if I can find it.
Walker Little, yeah. So the Eagles, by the way, yeah. So big day, potential big opportunity for Josh Sweat and company.
Anton Harrison.
Anton Harrison.
Right? Yeah.
Anton Harrison.
All right, Bryce. Maybe this is the week that Bryce Huff
It's
gets
more of
off
a, maybe. I doubt it, but maybe.
Maybe it is. We got BLG in the green room. I'll skip the break for now. BLG, let's bring him up now. The great BLG from Bleeding Green Nation joining us now sorry, I just said it, Bleeding Green Nation. BLG, how you doing this Wednesday morning, my man?
Doing good, guys. How's it going?
Good, man.
Good, BLG. I need your help because, man, I am fighting a losing battle. I knew when Jalen Hurts said impose, people were going to run with that. And boy, the Eagles have found the formula, and it's just to line up under center and hand the ball off. And that is going to make them successful moving forward. Is that correct, BLG?
What, the more under center?
Yes.
Is that
more
as
under
simple as
center? More under center. The creativeness of going under center has unlocked the potential of this Eagles offense.
I don't think it's that simple, but I don't think it's hurt either. I think they had their most efficient, effective offensive game in a long time when they scored like 7 of their 8 drives in this game. Doesn't hurt to do it, but certainly it is not the magical fix-all, just like blitzing isn't the magical fix-all on defense.
Yeah, I would agree with that. BLG, have you noticed the change, though, in the offense? I mean, we've been talking about it, and it certainly seems like, at least from my perspective, it doesn't mean I'm right, but that they've embraced a little bit more of a physical nature on offense. They've tried to impose their will. There's that word again. Have you noticed that, or is it more boiled down to that they've been more successful and now everybody points to the running?
I think in this game, this past game, I mean, I think that's an example of what they ideally want to do in terms of how they kind of basically did the opposite of what people traditionally say, run to set up the pass, and they really passed to set up the run. Late in the game there where they just take control and just don't even give the Bengals a chance by going on that long scoring drive to really ice the game. I think that's, ideally what they want to do. But there's no doubt that, coming out of the bye week here, I think just even in like the neutral split kind of game script situations there, you're looking at more heavy run overall. But I think the reason why a lot of Eagles fans are feeling good coming off of this game is that while the run is a nice weapon, really, really nice one when you can lean on Saquon Barkley, like the ceiling of the offense ultimately is only as good as the passing game is. And I think that's why, seeing Jalen Hurts look this good, makes everyone feel good.
Now, I agree with that sentiment, obviously. The ceiling of the offense needs to be about the passing game. But the concern is if you believe, and a lot of people believe, the Eagles have scaled back purposefully, is that a good thing when it comes to Jalen Hurts and that ceiling? Is that a good sort of, hey, we have to scale this back to help the quarterback? I don't think it's good.
Not in a perfect world, no. I think it's a matter of, the scope. Like if you're doing that for a game or two to kind of buy you time to figure things out with the passing game, especially if it's against inferior opponents like the Browns and the Giants, then yeah, that can be okay. You're buying yourself time to kind of figure it out there. But yeah, it can't be like you're doing that the rest of the season. At some point, the quarterback actually has to take control and has to, be the onus of the offense, especially in these high level matchups. So if it's coming to that point and you don't have the guy who answers the bell there, I think that's where it's the problem. I don't think it's a problem if you do it, in a certain matchup or for a short term kind of fix.
BLG, yesterday, Brian Baldinger put out a video breaking down film, and then he responded to somebody and said a few guys were tired of the offense and spoke up. Now, I'm not boots on the ground. You guys are more involved in that facility a lot more than I am. What's your takeaway? What's your reaction to that comment from Brian Baldinger, who is pretty connected with guys like Lane Johnson, and some of those people?
Well, Baldy needs to unblock me, first of all. I don't know why he did.
He blocked?
I'm blocked.
He's on a block list.
Wow.
I've never said a bad word about Baldy,
wow.
But so I didn't see that. So I don't know the exact, I guess context of everything. So that was about the offense now, you're saying?
Well, I'll give you the context. Baldy put up and said use of play action passes really help with the rhythm and timing of his throws. Receivers love it, and the O-line are thankful for it. Somebody responded to him and said, any idea why it took him 8 weeks to do this? And he said, a few guys were tired of the offense and spoke up. That was the context.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I think players having an input, there's countless examples of that. I think once upon a time, Jim Schwartz, Malcolm Jenkins going up to him and being like, hey, we have to simplify this defense right now. I think that was like a game when they were trailing against the Giants once upon a time at home. You can go back to the snow game and Chip Kelly, and was it Kerry Williams? It was like, just throw the ball up there. It's hard to defend. Or whatever. There's like, there's different examples. Certainly, I think of the players stepping up and trying to give the coaching staff an idea of what works. I think getting healthy obviously has been a big factor here as well. After they were just so banged up heading into the bye, but it is a weird offensive flow going from what we saw in week one, and that felt like, okay, this is like the new kind of offense with Kellen Moore and play action, pre-snap motion. They're seeing that. Obviously, the turnovers were an issue, but everything outside of that looked like promising. And then it kind of went away. The injuries were part of that. And now it started to come back. So it's kind of been a weird up and down with that.
Yeah, poor Baldy signaling Lane. But Lane said, hey, they were constipated a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So Lane doesn't have a problem voicing frustration when the offense isn't successful. How much of this change is lifted to just being ahead in the fourth quarter? I mean, we talk about snaps under center. Against the Giants, they ran it 14 out of 15 times in the fourth quarter. Everybody's talking about how much of it. And Nick Sirianni said, basically when he was asked after the game about being under center, He said, yeah, a little bit of that is just the way the game played out in different situations that happened in the game. I think we've had some big leads here the last couple of weeks that probably make that number balloon even more. I mean, he says it. Zander won't listen. I say it. Nobody will listen. Is it just a matter of how the game's personality more than any dramatic shift in the offense? Just better execution, I would argue.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think they did a little bit more, under center, like play action passing than we had seen earlier in the game there, but on which Jalen Hurts is really good on. And those, as shockingly, that's like an easy button for quarterbacks in the NFL. You definitely want to mix that in there again, more than the extreme
most
of not
of their play action. BLG was from the gun or pistol.
A lot of
Okay.
it was. Yeah.
It
Sure.
was the offset, sort of RPO play action, not the traditional back to the deep ends Kirk Cousins play action.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that's like the ultimate thing there. It's like they don't need to do it. It doesn't have to be every play. It just has to be more than it's not an element of the offense. I think that's basically what everyone wanted to see. And I think you're starting to see more. Again, the big thing to me is just like the way how this Bengals game went, especially more so in the second half. Like that's what this Eagles team ideally is built to be. They're built to be the front runners, where you pass the, establish this lead, and then you can just take control of the game and go on those long drives where the other team just can't stop you to kind of run out the clock and add some more points like they did in this game. And like that's the formula, and that's why kind of making the big deal about the slow starts is that when you get off to those faster starts, I think that just really fits what this team wants to be ideally.
Yeah, no doubt about it. BLG, have you seen enough from the offense to believe that they can? I'm not going to say they're going to be the 22 offense. It's obviously a different looking team. Players evolve, but at least the ceiling of that type of offense. Have you seen enough in the last couple of weeks to believe they can get back to that ceiling, or do you still have doubts?
I mean, it's hard to expect Jalen Hurts obviously to play like this level every week, but I think, I needed to see that. I think everyone needed to see that to kind of be reminded that he can do that, or at least approaching that. And you're going to need to see that more consistently. You want to see him stack some of these kind of performances. Again, it's not about being as great as he was, where he's, going 13-13 to finish the game like he did against the Bengals there. But you're looking for some more of that consistency. And yeah, I mean, that felt sustainable to me. I don't think it was just like, oh, they're, making fluky plays and that's how they won the game. No, like I think they imposed their will. To take your phrasing, I think that like everything they did there wasn't just about like, lucky kind of, plays. I think it was about like an actual offense that had flow and rhythm and it was in sync and was varied and they did different things. Like I think that's something to buy into, especially again, we kind of saw this in week 1 and that's a long time ago now, but it wasn't just like, okay, one game. They've done it before. Obviously, health and everything, there's going to be different factors there. And as teams adjust to what the Eagles are doing. But right now, I think this is sustainable. I believe in this.
Yeah, I think the talent is starting to impose its will on the offensive side of the ball, to use Jalen's term. I'm sick of talking about this offense, BLG. They did a great job, but I think it gets mired in the discussion. What should they do? Run, pass, blah, blah, blah. I want to talk about this defense because I'm starting to love this defense, and I did not think that was possible. And for all his reputation, Vic Fangio was living up to it, with the exception of Bryce Huff, I guess. But boy, the fourth down stop by Cooper DeJean. I mean, I go back to the Super Bowl, and you got veteran guys losing their discipline, and he does that perfectly. Keeps his eyes correctly, not wavered by the eye candy. Makes a great play on a true superstar in this league. We know how good Quinyon Mitchell's been. The linebackers, I mean, they were the 2 highest graded linebackers in the NFL by PFF. Could you ever imagine that when we're talking about the Eagles linebackers? Reed's been solid all year. CJ seems to be showing up a little bit more. Did you even imagine that this team could be where they are defensively?
Well, not especially not coming off of that Buccaneers game where it just felt like okay, what is like the hope for this unit if it's going to look that easy for the other offense? And maybe that game can just be chalked up to it was incredibly hot and they just weren't ready for that, and guys were tired and whatever. But yeah, I mean the DeJean play on fourth down has been like I've been thinking about that one and just how impressive that is for a rookie player to be lining up with Jamar Chase, like, and man coverage before the snap. He's running around like before the snap trying to match with him. And I was thinking about like how hard it must be to be running around before the snap and then somehow still like have the body control and wherewithal to like make that tackle in the open field. He had an open field tackle earlier in the game there on Trent Irwin. It was right before the Bengals scored that rushing touchdown with Chase Brown. Anyway, but like, just even again to make those kind of tackles, how many defensive backs just like end up flying by the guy? You see that regularly, and it's so hard to do for him to have the body control. It's been really impressed with him. But to the defense's success as a whole, I mean, it's what 3 games now. They've allowed 2 touchdowns. They really made the Bengals work for their offense in this game. Obviously, that like 10-minute drive. 17
yeah, it
plays.
looked bad early. I'm like, oh, here we go. It's going to be 85% completion percentage. And boy, they just clamped down from that point forward. It was an amazing performance. And, Nakobe Dean has been, I don't know if Vic, I asked Vic, is it more of guys? I didn't want to say Nakobe's name, but that's who I wanted sort of the thought process on. I asked him basically, is it guys getting more comfortable with the defense, or is it you getting, knowing their skill sets better and putting them in better positions? And he said it's a little bit of both, but he went 75-25 player.
Sure.
Which Vic always does, and he should, because it is player first. But boy, when he's going downhill, he is a really good linebacker. The question is, you're going to get Jaden Daniels at some point when he's in space, or with a good tight end. Can he do that, or can the opposition take advantage of that? But boy, he's impressive going downhill. Nakobe Dean, I didn't see that coming because he's looked great the past couple weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's almost just like, even if he can't do that and he is going to struggle in coverage, you can maybe live with that if just, because you're getting the positives otherwise. And maybe you can kind of just try to figure out how to work around that ultimately. And it could be a net positive for you, even if that's a specific area, obviously, where I think the Eagles will be tested more with teams trying to take advantage of that at some point sooner than later. But again, like the positives in terms of just being a force in the run game. I mean, him and Zach Bond, I think Zach Bond had something like 6 stops, which PFF defines as a play. It's a failure for the offense. I mean, like that's a big number for context. Usually like a good game for a player is having like 2 or 3 of those. I mean, Bond had 6. I think Nakobe had 4. I mean, those guys have just been, it's hard to, I'm sure, for Eagles fans to believe their team actually having linebackers who are good.
Yeah, the 2 top-rated linebackers in the NFL last week. BLJ.
You know what scares me though? How he's gonna see. I don't need to put assets in linebacker. That's what scares me a little bit.
Well, I mean, shoot, if these dudes play like this, keep them both here. I would try and get ahead of that Zach Bond extension if he's playing like this. And but we'll see how it goes. BLG, I'm going to give you some numbers real quick, and you kind of alluded to it, but just to bring clarity to what the numbers are. Since the bye week, first in points allowed, first in yards allowed per game, first in defensive success rate, second in sacks per game, and 5th in red zone scoring percentage. I mean, did we underestimate this defense, BLG? I mean, in a perfect world before the season started, I'm thinking, can we get the top 15? Can we get the top 12? I mean, right now they're playing like – now I'm not saying they're going to be first in everything through the end of the year, but did we underestimate what these guys can be? Could they be a top 10 defense in this league consistently?
Yeah, I think we need to see it, obviously against like higher level quarterbacks regularly. Now, what they did against Burrow and keeping him to, I think, like his worst passer rating of the year when he entered the game with the league's 3rd best passer rating. Like, that's obviously good. They kept Jamar Chase to like, I think either his 2nd worst or his worst game this year. That's a week after keeping Malik Neighbors to his worst game of his rookie career.
Yep.
Like I think that's something I look at and be like, okay, the defensive coordinator is coming up with plans to stop the other team's best players. And I think that's something to feel good about. And you can think that, he's finding answers. And I think, we've all talked about the hope for this defense when they were looking bad is that Vic Fangio's defense might take some time to kind of implement. And there's a big communication element. And that's probably going to take there's going to be some growing pains with that. So in theory, I think their outlook is looking good. But again, I guess have to see it more regularly against these top quarterbacks. They've also pretty much, knock on wood here, stayed, I think, pretty healthy defensively for the most part, and at least relatively to the offense where they were going through some struggles there. So that's something to monitor as well. But I think, this is a really encouraging stretch here for the defense. Again, no matter who you're facing, when you only allow 2 touchdowns in 3 games, it's pretty good.
Yeah, no doubt.
We are inside of a week, BLG, to the NFL's trade deadline next Tuesday. Something else big happened next Tuesday. But for NFL fans, that's the big story of the day. Already tons of moves around the NFL. Poor Doug Peterson lost his left tackle. Probably not going to have any of her receivers. So I like the Eagles this week. But to the trade deadline, you heard Nick Sirianni say he loves this team. Vic Fangio was asked about, is he pushing for any moves? He gave the classic one-word Vic answer, no. Now, coaches, there's coach speak involved.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at this team and I say, all right, where am I going to add? I said safety depth. Sidney Brown's back. I'm comfortable with that. Corner depth is good. You see Isaiah Rodgers making plays, even though Slay's not going to be out long. He might miss a week or two. Who knows? We'll get a better indication when we get out there today. But offensive line, I said depth. And Fred Johnson shutting down Trey Hendrickson. Are you really going to do better getting the backup tackle somewhere else? I don't know. Tyler Steen's able to step in and play competently. They already wasted a 3rd-round pick on a receiver, so they can't go back there. Is there anything they could do? Outside edge rusher. And can you bench a $51 million edge rusher to make room for another edge rusher?
Maybe you could try to move off of his contract in a deal with something, but probably not.
That seems unlikely, right?
Yeah. The way I think I would, here's my advice, Howie Roseman, since I know you're watching the show here, is that I think, especially looking at his past deadline history, like the deadline trade specifically, and more so the buying ones than the selling ones, like Zach Ertz and Joe Flacco. Jay Ajayi exception aside, haven't really been that great.
No.
And I think a common theme there is you're paying a decent price, and maybe some of them have seemed cheap, like Byard last year, but I think that's like buyer beware. And I think that's what you get what you pay for sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I'm approaching this deadline, if I'm Howie Roseman, as either I'm like big game hunting, I'm really getting aggressive and trying to get a player who's just a no doubt about it kind of star, like Max Crosby or Myles Garrett, both of who I don't think will be moved. But that's the kind of waters I would be testing if I'm Howie Roseman, or basically kind of just do nothing at all. You want to give up, like a late round pick swap for a depth player, then whatever. But I'm not operating in no half measures here. I'm either getting star hunting here, or I'm really just not really looking to get involved in a serious way.
Percentage that Howie will make a move, because I'm at 90. He just likes to do shit, even if it's that late depth, as you said, pick for 6th, 7th round pick,
right?
But,
or even like Eli, let's look at Eli Ricks. He's the 7th quarterback. He doesn't really play special teams. Can you flip him for another backup running back or something like that? Sure. I think you're looking at that. But otherwise, if it's not the star move, I just don't really think there's that really middle ground area that probably makes the most sense for value and fit here.
BLG, a 3-game win streak for this team, and you got Doug Peterson lurking against a team that looks like they're just in disarray. I mean, they trade their left tackle yesterday. They're down all these receivers. I look at this thing, I'm like, Eagles might blow this team off the page, but I don't want to fall into the trap game. How are you seeing this game coming up this weekend?
I mean, every reason on paper, the Eagles should be able to win this one comfortably with, like you say, and we'll see the injury report today, but the Bengals potentially being without their top 3 receivers here. They just traded away their starting left tackle, as we talked about here. The defense stinks to begin. So first of all, the offense middling to begin with. So, you take away with some of the best things going for it. Not sure what that looks like. Probably not too good. And then defensively, I mean, they've just been a really bad defense this year. They're allowing the highest passer rating in the NFL. And again, they're also banged up on that side of the ball. Old friend Ronald Darby and starting safety Andre Cisco both left the game in week 8 early. So we'll see where they're at with that. So, I mean, you said it, like, this can't be the letdown game, and it is kind of a letdown spot when you come off this big win against the Bengals and you're back at home, and the Jags just are terrible and banged up. So, if you're a serious team, you don't fall into that trap, and you take care of business, and you win the game, and you win it comfortably.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ceiling for this game is obviously the blowout, and that's what you want to see. And I think that proves you're, as you said, a serious team. The floor of this game, I think, is the classic play down to your competition, but in no way do I see them losing the game. Maybe it's a Cleveland type atmosphere where it's 20-16 and everybody's pissed off after the game, but I don't. Can you come up with any avenue for a Jags upset other than, I don't know, 4 turnovers?
Yeah, that's it though. It's beating yourself. If the Eagles beat themselves, which they are capable of doing, I've seen it happen before. They can absolutely give the Jags an avenue here to steal the game. But with Hurts taking care of the football, you feel better about that. I haven't checked the weather. We're not getting any weird weather, right? For Sunday's game.
No.
Like,
well,
sometimes...
it's gonna be hot.
Okay.
I think it's gonna cool off for the game, then get hot again.
I'm seeing high as 61.
It's gonna be like 80 degrees today, by the way.
Wow. But yeah, unless it's anything weird like that, then honestly, no. There's really no good. There's no good reason you should. I said that about the Browns game as well. Although I think they had their defense is at least a little respectable. But this Jags team, they're kind of just dead in the water here, and it's only really a matter of time until Doug gets fired, I'm sure.
I mean, the only thing I can look at this game and say maybe it's a matchup issue is Eagles are really good at running the ball right now, and the Jags have the 9th overall run defense. Now they suck against the pass, so it's going to be one of those games. Maybe they can force the Eagles to beat you through the air, which I guess some people could have questions about whether they'll be able to do that. I like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith versus them, but I think that could be an interesting matchup when you look at this game. The Jags run defense versus the Eagles high-powered running attack, I guess, would be a good matchup. But I don't know if it's enough to move the needle, BLG.
Yeah,
they have a good nose tackle. I know their nose tackle is like constantly double teamed. But yeah, I mean, if you're worried about that, I can't be too concerned about that. Yeah, I did find it. Your buddy Jimmy Kempski tweeted out that's crazy to me. The Saquon thing. I don't know if you saw Jimmy tweeted out the average yards before contact for Saquon Barkley, and then the average yards after contact. Obviously, the Giants' terrible offensive line. The career high average yards before contact was 2.5 in New York. It's 4.3 here. 4.3. And he's at a career low.
Yeah.
For average yards after contact. It was 2.8 early as a rookie when he was really explosive. And here it's 1.6. What do you make of that?
Well, he doesn't know what to do. He's getting too open. He has all this extra room. He's not sure what to do with it. I thought that was it a run or is it a pass or run on the swing pass, whatever it was, to the sideline there, like to bounce off Geno Stone like he did there. Like that's crazy. How many running backs just either get stopped or pushed out of bounds there? For him to have that angle and still stay in bounds.
Yeah,
that was pretty wild.
I didn't know I got to be honest. I didn't know he was as powerful as he is. I didn't expect that. Because and even if you go back to the Giants game on the first drive when it's like they were backed up 3rd and 14, 15 after a sack, and they dumped it off to him, and that's where he sort of ran over and ran onto the Giants sideline, just bowling through people. Didn't get the first down, but really impressive. He's been great, and that's what concerns me. Like their passing attack, as Zander was pointing out, doesn't that help the passing attack? Well, it really hasn't. They should be much better because they have this dominant run threat. And until this week against Cincinnati, hopefully they've gotten it going. But shouldn't it be much easier when you have that running threat?
Conventionally, yeah, you would think. But again, I think they, as Joe Boehner will probably like to remind everyone, you like to pass to set up the run. And I think that's where...
Well, that's true.
In this game, too.
Joe's right, I hate to say.
For sure. But, I think that's where, Saquon... But once you can do that, and it's not with all due respect, in years past, Kenny Gainwell or DeAndre Swift or Miles Sanders, there's a difference between those guys and those closeout situations, which they have done successfully at times, and Saquon, where I just feel like once you get into that situation, I just feel like he's not going to be stopped. He's just not going to be denied. And I think that drive at the end of the game that I keep talking about, that was just so, if you're a Bengals fan, just think about how hopeless you're feeling, where you're looking at okay, need to stop, just can't, just no chance, zero chance. So it's not going to happen.
Yeah. BLG, sometimes I get ahead of myself, and that's all right. I'm going to get ahead of myself right now. Is this team looking to you like they could be a Super Bowl contender this year? I know it's early, but, a couple teams are starting to really show who they are. I think the Lions are the best team in the NFC right now. You think the Eagles are close to that category or can say that they're a Super Bowl contender this year right now?
Well, I think, they're in a good position to contend for this division lead. If Washington ever loses a game, Eagles might have to take that into their own hands and just beat them twice. Yeah. And I'm certainly, I would put them above the Eagles right now, just with the consistency that they've had for most of this year. I'd also put the Packers above the Eagles still. We'll see, how Jordan Love's health goes. And I'm really interested to see that Lions-Packers game this weekend. That's going to be a big one, of course. But, yeah, those teams I'd put above the Eagles right now. Even though I know the Eagles beat the Packers, sure. But
I'm with you. I put the Packers ahead of them.
And it is close to me. It's not like a huge gap.
But I think Detroit's tier one.
Exactly.
Nobody's in tier one with
100. Well, I think to me, and in the NFL, the Chiefs, I know they don't always make it look pretty, but until they actually lose a football game,
I agreed.
I'm just not doubting Patrick Mahomes. And
no, they're back to back. I agree with that. I think they've earned the benefit of the
doubt. But the Lions are a better team right now. Now, hey, they could lose to the Packers this week. That's a very difficult game.
That's a great game. I'll tell you what, the Packers are good, man, but Jordan Love's turning the ball over a lot. I mean, he's a great quarterback, but
he's too reckless. But
he's got to get that together.
If he ever figures it out, as far as sort of marrying that, playmaking ability with being a little bit more careful with the football, they're going to be a problem. They're going to be a problem.
The way I would phrase it at the top, the difference between the Chiefs and the Lions, who I think are, inarguably the top two. I think the Chiefs are the most inevitable team in the league, and that they're just going to win somehow. And I think the Lions are the most imposing team in the league. They're just very scary.
I like it. And Jalen's word, it's imposing week. They're imposers. Yeah, the Detroit Lions. And by the way, they're frustrating, but I still think Baltimore is among the most talented teams. But when you lose to Jameis Winston,
Yeah, I think their setup is also harder. I mean, to win in the AFC, it's a lot different than winning in the NFC. We talk about the Eagles' running game. Well, it's a lot easier to bully your way through the NFC than it is the AFC. You got to be able to pass in the AFC. I mean, you're going up against Mahomes, the Allens, the Burrows of the world. It's a different conference for sure, and that's where I would question the Ravens.
Yeah, and Lamar's playoff numbers, if you take a look at them, are not very good. Yeah. And also, no guarantee they even win their division. Steelers are in the lead right now.
Steelers, Mike Tomlin's amazing.
Yeah,
I know he is. Russell Wilson all of a sudden looks like the old Russell Wilson.
Back.
He's dropping dimes, man. Dropping dimes downfield.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right, BLG, great stuff, man. Kind of sounds like I know where you're leaning this week. I know you reserve the right to change it, but You leaning Eagles right now this weekend?
Yeah, I like Eagles to win and cover. I'm gonna take
Win
them.
and cover.
Okay.
Another
Yeah.
blowout.
Yeah.
Boy, the people are going to get fired up.
What's
after
the line right now? It's got to be pretty
I
big.
see it at 7.5, and I'll even go further. I'm gonna say the Eagles score on their first drive in the first quarter.
Baby.
First quarter points. First
I
quarter
like
points.
it, BLG.
At Brandon Gouton, make sure you follow BLG on the X platform. Read them, bleedinggreennation.com. Tremendous go there every morning to get your latest Eagles news. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, BLG. Good stuff there from Brandon Lee Gouton joining us on Birds 365. Love talking to BLG. Johnny Mac, great conversation today on the show about offense and Saquon and running and Jalen and under center and play action, all sorts of fun stuff.
BLG is another high football IQ guy, but I'm boy, and I went back because I know you talked about
BLG to the list of giving you a concussion. Is that where you're
no,
going?
No. Because BLG gives I don't understand like the numbers, like you put out the numbers, whatever they were, and they went to 35% this week. And like Nick explains it. And literally right after the game, I think we've had some big leads here the last couple of weeks that probably makes that number balloon. Like, I don't know, like the people, and even Jalen, when Jalen said the imposing thing, he said, I think we're able, this was what I was trying to find before. I think that we're able to be the imposers. I think that says a lot. And then the very next thing he says is there are multiple ways to impose. You can do that from the gun. You can do that in the pass game. You can do that in the run game, in the action game, whatever it is, as long as you're in full control. Like, I think people cut off and then just shut off their mind and don't listen to the full description. Because when Nick was talking about the imposing, he was also talking, the specific example he brought up was Jack Stoll and pass protection. So that's where my frustration stems. They want to be a physical team, and his example was Jack Stoll and pass protection, who held up against, I think it was Sam Hubbard for about 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And I think people just turn it off and they hear that word and they go, yeah, and then just shut it down.
Well, BLG, I mean, it doesn't sound like he completely disagreed with what I was saying, John. Now, maybe he did a better job at explaining it than my dumbass did, and that's why it was.
Well, now,
better, but
and even, so they ran 21 plays under center, 38 in either the gun or the pistol, which is the highest percentage of under center they've done. 19 runs, 19 of those 21 plays were runs. 5 were tush pushes. Like it really starts to whittle away if you just look at the context.
The greatness of Saquon Barkley, Johnny Mac, is changing the Eagles' offense.
10, first of all, the greatness, and this is not because people think I don't like Saquon. This has nothing to do with Saquon, because Saquon has overperformed anyone's expectations. And the passing game has gotten worse. So again, it's not necessarily, it all comes back to Jalen Hurts. He played a very good game and everybody's excited, but we're 2 weeks away from Chase Daniels shitting on him, Dan Orlovsky shitting on him. So be wary when you're having these spikes in bipolar episodes.
Well, there's ebbs and flows. I mean, just because they were shitting on him 2 weeks ago doesn't mean they were wrong in that moment. Jalen was struggling. He looked better this week, and they gave him credit.
Well, it does mean they overreact to the moment. So keep that in mind when they're overreacting to the
No,
next
but
one.
John, I mean, in a way, you get this. It's our. I mean, you're a reporter. You have a different job. I mean, when you're on a talk show,
No,
you got to
I'm
react to what you see every week. That's how you. That's how it
that's
goes.
fine, but you also add the context, and which I try to do every week. But
Well, you do a great
fail.
job of it. I think that's why we have
Evidently
such a
fail.
loyal fan base here.
But
on JAKIB.
I mean, when you talk about people making these grandiose proclamations off 1 week, and you realize if you watch this league, never mind for years, but even for a number of weeks, you see that ebb and flow that you're talking about. So you can't make these grandiose proclamations. Well, you can do whatever you want, but you're gonna be wrong if you start making grandiose proclamations, good or bad.
Yeah, welcome to talking about football. You're always going to be wrong at some point. I mean, shit.
95% of the time, it's never as good as you think it is, and 95% of the time, it's never as bad as you think it is. The highs and the lows. But yeah, I mean, and then I had to dig up Nick's quote, and that's what it was. He was asked specifically about the under center snaps. Yeah, a little bit of it is that it's just the way the game is played out in different situations that happen in the game. I think we've had some big leads here the last couple of weeks that probably make that number balloon, but it's good to be multiple in some different things and still do what you do well, blah, blah, blah. You said it for everybody. It's the game situation. So don't get, I'm saying, if you understand that, fine. If you don't get excited about it because it will be defined by the game situation. Success takes what it takes.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Let's get to our super chat. Brian, who's really a funny commenter. Brian checks in and he says, Jalen Hurts is the epitome of excellence. He is an angel descended from the heavens. His aura overwhelms the mere mortal, and his greatness is undeniable.
Brian's right. I mean, just the drastic pendulum effect from week to week. I mean, the 1 week, the Eagles are the least prepared team in the history of football. The next
week, Jalen Hurts sucks, and 1 week he plays like a freaking MVP caliber quarterback.
And 2 weeks later, they figured it out. They're a Super Bowl contender again. I mean, yeah, he's a good quarterback.
His greatness is undeniable, Brian says. Brian, I love it, man. Thanks for the $5 super chat. Your support of the show is appreciated, my friend, even when you're hilarious when you do it. Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Final thoughts, man, on today's show. I know you're heading down to NovaCare Complex. I almost don't like how I feel about this game this weekend, John. I almost don't like it.
I'm pretty comfortable with this game.
I think we're going to win by 3 touchdowns for crying out loud.
Yeah, they got to play down to their opponent not to win by 3 touchdowns. This is going to be another blowout. And so you have to have this narrative.
Are we going to get Doug fired?
No, they're not going to fire him.
They shouldn't. They're such a bad organization. I mean, he's the first.
They're going to fire him after the season. They would have fired him in, coming out of London.
Yeah, they're going to, but they're not. They shouldn't fire him after the year either, because maybe they should just force him into a Nick Sirianni move.
I mean, continuity is better than the alternative. But, part of life in the NFL. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah, I mean, they're just not a winning organization. It's one thing if you're a winning organization and you're not able to, win. Doug got them a winning season. I mean, he took them to the playoffs. I think his first 2 years.
He's a good coach. But yeah, he's swimming upstream down there.
Yeah, he is.
Tony Khan, get your shit together. Forget about wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, give your boy a call and say, "What the F are you doing, man?"
Hopefully, I'll see him this week. Yeah, I'm not going to say what the F are you doing, but he knows I don't have tremendous amount of respect for that organization. But
I'm sure he knows it's warranted as well.
Well, I don't think he thinks that, but people in the moment, they think they're doing the best thing they should, but and he's not, he's not in charge of anything. His dad runs the team, and he's got a role, director of football operations strategy, some bullshit like that. But Trent Baalke's
Doug's going over there to Andy, John, when he gets fired, going over with Andy Reid.
Maybe if he might want to golf in Florida, man.
Well, he will probably for a year, but I don't know. Don't you think that might be too many? I mean, remember, he took the year off, and you had mentioned at the time, rightfully so, you don't want to take yourself out of the mix, in the NFL, because names come and go quick. So I don't know. I mean, he just had a year off. You might not want to take another year off.
No, yeah, I presume, but I'm just saying you never know where somebody is in their personal life, and he is.
I guess getting paid $5 million to golf in Florida.
Yeah, he is getting up there, late 50s, I'd say. Maybe that's enough.
Maybe we'll see what happens with Doug. Appreciate everybody in the chat today. Johnny Mac, great show today. What did we get to on the like count, everybody? Did we smash the like button, or were we softies in the chat and we didn't get the likes? Let me check real quick before we get out of here. 154, not bad. Not bad, everybody. Thanks for all the likes. Appreciate everybody supporting the channel. Johnny Mac, great show today, man. Get there safely to NovaCare, and we will talk to you tomorrow on Thursday's edition of Birds 365. All right, man?
All right, sounds good. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow on Birds 365. Mike Gill tomorrow, 8:20 a.m. See you then, everybody.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.